very brief. Act 2, Scene 2. We're back from Act 1. Act 2, Scene 1 is the subplot. Act 2, Scene 2 is the main plot. And again, here we are on page 25 of your paper 2 notes book. Again, your job is to read this note, which explains everything that happens in the scene. And then I'm going to very briefly now, in a very short video, go through some of the key quotes from that scene. They are interesting and there are things that are significant. So this is the scene in which Kent arrives at Gloucester's castle, acting as the agent or the messenger for King Lear. So just for a bit of context, Lear was in Goneril's castle. Goneril asked him, told him a little to disquantity his train. He reacted violently, told her into her womb convey sterility, and said he's going to go to Regan. He went to Regan's castle, but Oswald, Goneril's servant, got there before him, warned Regan that Lear was coming, and Regan, in order to dodge her father and probably to exacerbate his suffering because the journey would be arduous for anybody, particularly a man of his age, she left her castle and went to Gloucester's castle, making Lear's journey longer and more difficult. Now, Kent has arrived in like the vanguard of Lear, so he's arriving ahead of Lear. And when he arrives, he meets Oswald. And he knows that Oswald, there's only one reason Oswald is there, and that's because he's conspiring, helping Goneril conspire with Goneril. So Kent is furious, and he says, I love this, he says, draw, you rascal. And that doesn't mean like they're going to have a sketching competition. No, it doesn't mean that. Draw means take out your sword. And he says, and I really like this, you come with letters against the king and take Vanity, the puppet's part, against the royalty of her father. Now, let me just explain it really quickly. He's saying, let's translate this into Dublin. He's saying, you are acting against the king. You are acting in for that horrible woman, that ungrateful daughter, that vain woman, Goneril. So come on, let's have it. Come and have a go. I think it's an interesting moment. Kent is a man who we admire. I mean, he really is like, he's one of the characters that Shakespeare designs to represent virtue, decency, the good side of human nature. But he's weak here. He's as blind here as Lear is at the start of the play. He's saying that the problem is Goneril's vanity. See that there? You take Vanity, the puppet's part. So he's calling Goneril vain. Goneril's not the problem. Goneril is certainly not the problem. She hasn't created this issue. Lear has created the issue. Now, Goneril has decided she's going to act against Lear. But Kent is saying that it's Goneril's fault. It's not Goneril's fault that this, disastrous scenario is unfolding. But Kent is so loyal to Lear, so devoted to Lear, that he's blinded to the truth. I think it's worth considering. Maybe even if you don't agree with it, it's something worth considering. I suppose the point I'm trying to make is that in Act 1, Scene 1, Kent challenges Lear. I think that's okay. He thinks that because he's acting in the king's best interests. When he feels that somebody's acting against the king's best interests, he's outraged. That's important. We know he fights with Oswald and brilliantly calls him a base football player. Well, that's earlier actually, isn't it? But anyway, he fights with Oswald. We know that there's a ruckus and Cornwall, comes out to see what the hell's going on, and Cornwall tells him to stop fighting. And Kent insults Cornwall. Cornwall is a lord. Kent is too, but he's in disguise as a peasant. So that has to be punished. You can't do that. So Kent is put in the stocks. This kind of medieval form of public punishment where you're locked into this wooden frame and left outdoors. But Kent is outraged. And again, I think this feeds into this sense that he's nearly blinded by loyalty to the king. Even though he knows what Lear has done, he can't really understand why people would behave this way against the king. He's so, obsessed with the idea that you serve your king, that he's completely nonplussed when people don't think that's what they need to do. So he says, call not your stocks for me. I serve the king, on whose employment I was sent to you. You shall do small respect, show too bold malice against the grace and person of my master, stocking his messenger. It's a brilliant moment, but it's a moment of deep irony. He's saying, you don't want to stock me. You don't want to punish me. I'm the king's servant. I'm here for the king. If you insult me, if you lock me up, if you punish me, you're going to insult the king. Now, the implication is you don't want to do that because the king will kick your ass because the king is powerful. But of course, what Kent still is not computing is that that's exactly why Cornwall is stocking him. Prior to the abdication, Kent's right. Not a snowball's chance in the hottest part of hell would anybody have stocked Lear's messenger, because the reaction would have been fury and suffering. But now Lear is a paper tiger. He still has his roar. He's still able to threaten and abuse, but he has no power, no muscle to enforce his will. And stocking Kent for Cornwall and Regan is an important symbol. They want Lear to arrive and see Kent in the stocks. They want him to feel disrespected. They want him to be aware of the fact that he's being humiliated, because they want to show him he can do nothing about it. He has no power. They are being, see that word there? Where did I put the pen? They are being malicious. Now, malicious means, to be malicious is to deliberately set out to cause harm. And there is no doubt that Cornwall's stocking of Kent is an example of that. Gloucester, really shocked by what's going on, says to Cornwall, and again, it's a brilliant moment, the king must take it ill that he so slightly valued in his messenger should have him thus restrained. Gloucester saying, Jesus, Cornwall, Lear's going to go mad. Lear's going to lose his nut when he finds out that you've stopped his messenger. But what you need to know is Cornwall's response. His response is uncaring. I'm going to try. I must have left the pen outside. I'll try to write it here. Oh, sorry. Nonchalant. It's a great word, isn't it? It comes from French. It's a shrug of the shoulders. The response is, and? So what? Who cares? Now again, just those three words. This is an example of Shakespeare's use of dialogue. Just those three words show the extent to which Lear is no longer regarded as a person of importance. Gloucester, shocked by the idea that Lear might find his messenger stocked. Cornwall happily anticipating Lear finding his messenger stocked, because he's not afraid of Lear's response, because he has no power. An interesting little scene, which helps build up to the climax in Act 2, Scene 4.